Hi. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate everyone who's here. We are here to talk about something we're hearing a lot about, which is cancel culture. So most people have read this book, The Scarlet Letter, or required to in school. And I brought this up because I wanted to bring up the fact that cancel culture is not actually a new phenomenon. In The Scarlet Letter, if you didn't read it, it was set in 1652 in the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and a woman called Hester Prynne got pregnant outside of her marriage. And because of that, she was forced to wear a scarlet letter for the rest of her life on her chest. She was put in the town square on the block, and everybody made fun of her while she held her baby. She was put in jail, and then from that point forward, she was forever shunned by her community. In other words, Hester Prynne was canceled. And what is cancel culture exactly? It is something, I guess I'm kind of guilty of it. At first, I thought it was kind of a good idea, but the more I looked into it, I realized it really isn't that great of an idea. So contemporary, it's a contemporary phrase in our lexicon right now. It's a form of ostracism, where someone is thrust out of social or professional circles, whether it be online, social media, or in person. In other words, if someone says or does something that we don't like, or we don't think is right, we often, we like to ignore and punish them. But this is something that's coming from a punitive worldview. Canceling somebody is a way of punishing them. And it's responding with anger instead of seeking to understand where they're coming from or trying to teach something different. What's better is if you can have discussions. Hey, Veronica. If you have a discussion about something you don't like and educate people, because when you have discussion and education, then you have understanding and compassion. So an example that some of you may have heard of is there was a rapper, his name is DaBaby, and he apparently made some homophobic comments. And he was, getting canceled. But Miley Cyrus stepped in, and she publicly offered to help educate him about these issues. And I think that's really cool. I never in a million years thought I would be up here saying yay for Miley Cyrus, but the fact that she stepped in and tried to shift the conversation to let's talk about this, let's get some education going, let's raise awareness about this issue instead of just canceling the person who said the wrong thing. And I thought that was really cool. So with this phenomenon, what most of us think of when we think of cancel culture is that it's around celebrities or famous people or people that are in the limelight. But there's a whole other group of people who also get canceled. And I called Fritzi Horstman. She's the founder of the Compassion Prison Project, and she sent me an email yesterday. She said, "Prison is the ultimate cancel culture." And I just love that quote because it is. Our prison system is warehousing people. It's really basically throwing them away. And not only does it take them out of society, but it makes it very, very difficult for people to come back in once they're out. When I was doing my research, there's an organization called Common Justice and a really great article that was written. And they said cancel culture and our criminal legal system treats people as if they are irredeemable and deserve to suffer a lifetime of unemployment, ostracism, and punishment. In this way, cancel culture and incarceration share the same end goals. And there was a great article in Newsweek by David Ben Moshe, and he was saying that he agrees that people should be held to account for their actions, but they also must be given the opportunity to change. We need a culture of reform and not of outrage. I think most of us are pretty tired of the outrage that we feel and the way it is divisive. So if we can have a culture of reform, that would be a better thing. And this is true for anyone who makes a mistake. And it's also true for convicted criminals. The Prison Policy Initiative is a think tank, and they did some research, and they said around 2.3 million people are incarcerated in the United States on any given day, and 5.7 million people are disenfranchised for having a prior felony conviction. We incarcerate more people than every other country combined in this country. It's just disgusting. And the barriers that people face once they've come out can be pretty formidable depending on their situation. In some states you can't vote. Employment can be very difficult. Housing can be very, very challenging. You're denied federal aid. I didn't know this, but because I have a nonprofit, I've been talking to other volunteer coordinators, and some of them are saying they won't hire people that have criminal backgrounds or let them volunteer, which I thought was really sad. And there's lots of stories like that gentleman in the Newsweek article who said that he went to school for physical therapy. He did everything. He had like a 4.0 GPA, and I've read numerous stories like this, but when he applied to grad school, they actually let him in, and then they did a background check and then denied him. So, I mean, how are you supposed to let people do well and make their lives better if they're restricted in that way? These are the physical things or the actual things we can name, but because of the way our system is set up, the results of these barriers can lead to frustration. I mean, the people I work with, many of them have such a hard time just getting things done because there's so many barriers, and that just reinforces the shame. Shame is a really, really big thing with the folks that we work with in some cases. And because they're denied a lot of this stuff, there's a lack of support, there's a lack of opportunity, sometimes hindered career like we're talking about, and social stagnation. So these are the things that Golden Rule is looking to address out there in society. But I'm happy to say that not everybody is impacted this way. Man never made any material as resilient as the human spirit. And I'm very, very excited today because I have a very special friend and a very special guest who did 11 years in prison and has had a wildly successful time since she's been out. And I just wanted to bring Adele up here. Let's give Adele a hand. Very brave for coming.
Thank you. Good evening.
Actually, come stand over here.
Oh, okay.
Adele has just been an amazing person in my life, and she's someone who I'm just so grateful to know. And I just thought it would be interesting, and she was so gracious to come here and talk to you guys, to just tell a little bit about her story. So I'm just going to ask Adele a few questions, and just to kind of, one of the reasons I thought you'd be such a great person is that you're just like any of us, and your story. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your childhood and growing up?
I was born in Mexico. I came to the U.S. when I was 10. I was adopted by an American who married my mom, and my adolescent years in Mexico were pretty sad, I'd say, because I felt abandoned, and my mom left me, and I thought that she was never gonna come back to get me. And when she did come back, I was, very happy that she did. And having my family, my grandmother telling me that she's just wasn't gonna come back for me, I felt bad, But so when I came here, I didn't know any English, a word of English at all. So my first goal was to learn English, and that was my main object, so I could communicate with, because I love the American culture. I wanted to just engulf myself in it and learn everything about it. But it was hard, going to school and not knowing anything. But as I learned English, there's a lot of things that I didn't like. I felt like an outcast, but I still tried to live a normal life. And when I was 16, I ran away from home because my mom was trying to just be really, really strict and implement all these Mexican traditions on me. And I just wanted to just live the American life and be normal and wear makeup and have boyfriends and do all that stuff, and she wasn't allowing me to do that. So I was rebellious from then on. But I was always responsible. I always went to school, held a job. I bought my first house when I was 21, and I had a really good job. And then at 26, I hooked up with this guy, my boyfriend at that time, and I fell in love with him, and he introduced me to drugs, and I started using with him, and that's where my down spiral started, because I lost my job, and then I was really, really down and out with that because I was so used to being there with him. I worked at that job for like 8 years, and I couldn't afford the lifestyle that I had with my job, and then there was a zero drug tolerance, so they tested me one day, and I was 30, and I got fired, and then I lost I lost a lot of stuff, and I started drinking with him and doing drugs because I wanted to be on the same level as he was, because I was in love with him. And that's how I started to sell drugs, I guess, so I could afford what I was doing. And it just got out of control, and I got indicted when I was 33 for conspiracy, and they sentenced me 160 months.
Which is?
13 years and 4 months.
First offense. First offense.
Yeah.
Successful person. Had a great job until, yeah.
And when I was in prison, I tried to ask for a pardon, clemency, and I got denied for everything. So I ended up doing like 85% of my time. And while I was in prison, I was trying to do my time, doing all the programs that I could. And I did a lot of programming in there, which helped me a lot to keep my good time, not lose it, and stay focused. I did horticulture programs. I did paralegal. I did recovery programs, and I exercised. I read a lot, and just stay to myself and not get into the drama, and because there's a lot of drama in there with the girls that can be really catty. And I did meet a lot of good people in there. I made a lot of good friends throughout the years, you know. And here I am.
So tell us about, so when you got out, so you ended up doing 11 years.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, almost 11 years. You rounded off, it's 11 years. I got released this year, January 13. And I'm working 2 jobs now, and it's kind of, this is my first time that I've ever public speak, so just bear with me. I'm a little nervous.
You're doing great.
But I get a lot of anxiety, you know, just being around people. I'm not, you know, I feel like everything's new to me. The technology has advanced, and just using a phone was challenging to me. But I'm learning. Every day is it's a new day, and I feel like I can learn something every day if I just open my mind and embrace everything. And I feel like I have a second chance to life, and I'm very grateful for everything. And just, it's amazing. Like like my mind's clear, and I see everything differently. I'm just thankful and grateful that I have a family, my mom, and that are here to support me, and I'm blessed in that aspect, because I know a lot of people that are coming out and don't have that. And I have a home, and I'm very thankful for that.
Thanks, Adele. Yeah, Adele's really special. I work with a lot of people personally, and you're truly one of the most successful. I would never know that you just got out of prison a few months ago, because you know, you're really doing a great job.
Thank you.
So, you know, hats off to you. I'm sure you guys have questions for Adele, and so we're going to hold questions till the end. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell anybody? Anything else you can think of?
I just want to say, you know, I did make poor choices. I made a poor choice to sell drugs, and I just want to say that doesn't define me, who I am today. And I learned from my mistake, and now I just want to be a better human being. That's all. I made a bad choice. You're
incredible. Adele. Oh, I was supposed to have that on the screen while you talked.
It's
Adele.
Okay.
There she is.
It's okay.
So Adele is knowing someone like Adele is the reason that I started Golden Rule ReEntry, because you know, when you meet these incredible people and you realize how much potential and how you know, just like you said, a mistake, a choice, a decision should never define someone. We've all done things we're not proud of. We've all made mistakes. It should never be the final word on who we are. So Golden Rule ReEntry was formed in 2020, a couple years ago, so we're very new. We called it Golden Rule for kind of the obvious reason. We think that it's important that people understand that, it's important to treat people how you'd like to be treated. So we're trauma informed and we're community based. Our model is to engage the community, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. This is the kindness culture part of the lecture. We do this through a couple of different ways, through kinship and networking, classes and services. The idea is that we want to foster connection and help people with their personal and professional growth as we do that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about trauma because most of the people that we work with have experienced significant trauma, and being trauma informed is a huge part of this. ACEs are adverse childhood experiences. They're called ACEs. A lot of the folks we work with have had ACEs, and that can lead children to isolate themselves and also be neglected, depending on what their situation is at home. This actually can change your neurobiology. These three things can lead to actual changes in your brain. And if you're in a state of hypervigilance, it's very difficult to learn, because if you're in fight or flight mode, your intellectual capacity or executive function, the part of you that learns and prioritizes and thinks straight, shuts down by design. And so a lot of kids that are exposed to a lot of toxic household situations go to school and they don't thrive at school, so they get put on that other track. And it's not because they're not smart. In fact, they're very smart. Their whole being is designed to protect them from danger. But it doesn't work well in the school system. So they get, kind of put on the low track. There's a failure to thrive. And there often becomes antisocial behavior and addiction issues. Often this leads to incarceration. And here's a really big, important part of this. To me, this square up here is the most important part of all of understanding for people who've been to prison, is that loss of self-determination. Loss of self-determination is actually what trauma is. When something bad is happening to you, like as a child, and you don't have the ability to protect yourself or defend yourself or get out of the situation, that is what causes trauma. So being incarcerated is intrinsically traumatizing. When you get out of prison, there's often a loss of opportunity, and all those things that we already talked about can then lead to a loss of self-worth. And that's a shame. I'm going to show a 7-minute video. This was, has anyone here seen this video? Okay. It's worth seeing again. Always makes me cry, but it's by Fritzi Horstman. She is the founder of the Compassion Prison Project. She goes into prison and she talks to inmates about shame. Oops. Oops, sorry, I'm hitting the wrong button. Operator error.
We're going to do the Compassion Trauma Circle. Is everyone ready to face their past with compassion? Is that a yes? While you were growing up, during your first 18 years of life, if a parent or other adult in the household often or very often would swear at you, insult you, put you down, or humiliate you, step inside the circle. If a parent or other adult in the household often or very often pushed, grabbed, slapped, or threw something at you, step inside the circle. If a parent or other adult in the household often or very often ever hit you so hard that you had marks or were injured, step inside the circle. If you often felt that no one in your family loved you or thought you were important or special, step inside the circle. If your family lived in extreme poverty, step inside the circle. Step inside the circle. Step inside the circle. Step inside the circle.
No shame. There is no shame.
So good. Good to see you. How are you? Amen. Well, good to see you. Welcome. I was abused as a young girl. I was beaten by my mother. I was verbally abused by my mother. I was sexually abused by another man. My father was an alcoholic. My mother was a rageaholic. I've driven drunk. I've sold drugs. I was a juvenile delinquent. Probably my story is similar to most of your stories in here. I'm white and I'm female and nothing happened to me. So, I got a get out of jail free card. And so I'm here now because I see myself in every one of you.
I'm a traumatized child, raised by a traumatized child. My mother was traumatized as well as her parents.
Like he said, we wasn't born in the world of being evil people. My mother didn't want me. She hid her pregnancy, and she tried to flush me down the toilet. But as I learned about these things, I always asked myself what was wrong with me.
When I come to the circle and I see everybody else, and she's reading off the questions and people stepping in further, I look at my childhood and I'm like, a lot of these people in this yard are just like me.
There was one step I should have taken that I didn't take, and I saw some of my brothers and my friends take that step, and I felt like such a coward. I wasn't brave enough to be there with them when they took that step. And every round after that, I took the most difficult step.
Our traumas kept us separated. We were all on the circumference, all standing apart. But once we began to acknowledge our traumas publicly, it brought us all closer together.
In prison, you're not supposed to show your weaknesses in prison, though. But to want to do that, to walk in that circle like that, and to take each step forward was a reminder to ourselves that we still have the humanity and we worthy to be loved, though. Most people on the outside don't understand that we want to change so we can re-enter society better than what we left it.
And I think one of the things that when you was yelling at no shame, and you had us yelling it out, it was freeing us too. And it was a point to where when I was looking at that and we was all looking at it in a circle, you can hear that echo, no shame. And that was very powerful, especially coming from a little lady like you.
I'm 76 years old. I've seen a lot. I don't like talking. I like to meet people that understand what's happening without words. And you one of them. Today has been one of the best days I had in my whole entire life. So I've been out here ready for it.
Your true spirits are not violent. Your true spirits are magnificent. Hi, my name is Ruthie Corson, founder.
So I love that video because it just really helps, I think, helps people understand the beauty inside of these people. And I got choked up. The man that said it was the best day of his life, he had both his legs amputated shortly after that because of COVID. Anyway, I started Golden Rule because I wanted to be trauma informed with the people that we help. And so part of being trauma informed is that you really treat people as a whole person, and you realize that they have different aspects and that's never a one size fits all. So the programs that we have are modular because not like Adele there's a lot of things that Adele doesn't need because she's already set, but other people all these other things. So I'm just kind of going to go around and tell you a little bit about some of the things. One of them is trauma support. Now, we're not counselors. like that. But luckily we live in Ashland and there's and modalities here, and so we are all about it. If you have something that you do that you think would help people heal trauma, please let me know. One of the things that we do is we got a grant to get heart math devices, which has like a biofeedback basically to help people calm down, because a lot of people who experience a lot of trauma are in a state of hypervigilance and they're agitated a lot. And so to do a meditation every Monday night, the Rest and Revive meditation. It's a deep meditation, a guided meditation, where all you have to do is join in by Zoom and then turn off your camera, and we'll take it from there. We have a life skills class that we're putting together. I'll show you more about that later in the presentation. And also just one-on-one. If people have things that they need to work on, we, of course, help them figure stuff out. Adulting. I could change that to adulting. Career, it's actually career and entrepreneurial support, and at the end of the presentation I'll tell you about a program we're developing right now that's actually to give people microloans to help them start their own businesses, because a lot of people with backgrounds, if they're having barriers to employment, if they're motivated, they might as well start their own business. That way they can get going that way. So that's something. We have a few different self-assessment tests. Adele and I have done some of those together. It's really important with self-assessments to understand your strengths. Golden Rule, where we are using a lot of the evidence-based information and things that we do, and one of them is that you want to build on people's strengths. The Good Life model is a study that was done in Australia, and they found that if you do help people build their strengths, they're much more likely to succeed, whereas the sort of American dream is overcoming all your weaknesses, and it's really not the best approach. So especially if you've done a lot of time and you just want to find out, like we do these self-assessments, and they're kind of career-oriented, but it helps people find their strengths so that when they go to WorkSource or the employment department, that they have a better idea about what kind of job they might be. We're small and it's mostly me. Kinship, that's a term I borrowed from Homeboy Industries. Who here has heard of Homeboy Industries? Okay, it's the largest gang intervention in the world. It's down in LA. It was founded by Father Gregory Boyle. He is my absolute inspiration, and he uses the word kinship, and it's really because of him I started Golden Rule ReEntry. He was talking about his organization, which does everything you'd think it does, has anger management and job training and, you know, GED and SHOP and all those things, but he says we have a culture of extravagant tenderness. And when I heard that, I realized, oh, okay, I can do this, because that's what I wanted to do. So our kinship, basically, it's just, it can be one-on-one. It's just being your flat tire friend. So we pair people up with a partner. We don't call them mentors, because I think that's condescending. I call them navigators. And but the kinship program is just helping people, making sure that people feel supported and cared about. And then resource navigation is also something we do a lot of right now. Southern Oregon's pretty amazing. I didn't know, because I wasn't really in the social services arena. There's a lot of stuff you can get help with here in Southern Oregon, and I've been educating myself, and so when we have people, we help people. Access has money for housing, WorkSource has ways to get people into jobs, Teresa McCormick has food, you know, there's just a zillion different places you can go for whatever you need. So we drive people around. Most of what I do is driving around, buying people coffee. Do a lot of caffeinating Southern Oregon. Our model, which makes us a little bit different, it's very important to me that with Golden Rule, that we are where the community meets the agencies. We don't want to be an agency. We don't want people just to come and get something and then go away with that thing. We want people to have the things, but mostly we're going to other agencies. What we want to do is we don't tell you where to go, we'll take you. So if there's something you need an appointment for, we'll not only help you make that appointment, but if you want, we'll go with you. I've gone to a lot of appointments and sat with the people that I'm working with because sometimes they're not comfortable. So we do that. We also don't just give you a form to fill out, we'll fill it out with you. So that way we know that people are actually, because that's actually one of the problems, is people on the outside don't realize what the challenges are for people coming out, you know. And so we're just very sensitive, again, because we're trauma informed. We want to make sure that people really get to where they're going. We don't just, you know, point them there. The other thing about Golden Rule is, back to the culture of kindness, for all the things that we do and all the things that we're going to do, there's a whole list of things that we're doing, but really every time we do something, it's a touch point for kindness. And that's so important to me. It's not just about getting the thing done. It's really about being a person that, because a lot of the people we work with have no one. They have no family. They have, the only people they have are the people on the streets. And if they go back to the streets, we all know how that's going to end. And so by creating an environment of kindness, we feel like that we're helping people erase some of that shame and have a better sense of themselves. This is a huge part of Golden Rule. As we get going and we're doing our navigator, we've already done one round of navigator training, and it's a pretty intense training. We train on how to be trauma informed, how to do active listening. We have the parole officers come and talk. We do the ACEs training. We have Jackson County does a mental health first aid. There's a lot of training. And so we have this group of volunteers going through this training, and they start to bond. And the idea is, okay, so now you're working with your person and they need something and maybe you don't know how to get it, but now you've got all these other people in Golden Rule that you're friends with, so then you can call them. And we start leveraging each other's networks. Because I know for myself, really, I've never had a job by just printing out my resume and knocking on doors. I pretty much got everything in my life because I knew someone or someone knew someone and someone referred me. And, that's how life works. And so the more we can help leverage our folks, leverage our own networks, what we're doing is basically we're reabsorbing people out of prison. We're reabsorbing them into the community instead of treating them like a subgroup or, an isolated group. And then, that was the last point. So the reabsorption into the community. So we do this in different ways. The first way is the navigators, and that's what I was talking about. It's a pretty intensive training, and then we pair people up one-on-one. Or if you're not comfortable doing one-on-one, we'll kind of do it as a group. We're still, we'll do it however it works for you. But the idea is that you are that flat tire person. You're the person who you have to be accountable to your partner. We ask that you be your word. Really just whatever they need. Sometimes it's just a listening ear, and that's really important. The listening is so much more important than the talking. Our job is not to think that we know more, because we actually don't. But navigators, so this is what I was talking about, navigator network. So we've got navigators, and that's this circle right here. The next level is a really cool level, and this is something we're going to build out, and that's our community collaborators. And community collaborators can be individuals or organizations that like what we're doing and would like to get involved. We've already talked about that. And we're very lucky to have with us today one of our community heroes, Jean Tressenfeld, who is part of my PowerPoint. Did you know you were part of my PowerPoint?
No, I didn't.
Many people have seen this. So Jean, would you want to just stand up and tell people about yourself and what you've been doing?
So I'm part of the Ashland Chamber, and Abby came on one day and was like, okay, we need massage therapists if anybody's willing to volunteer. Well, I don't do that, at least not in Oregon. And I contacted her and say, I do life coaching and energetic healing. She was like, cool. She understood it, which was a good start for me. And then one by one, and there's been a few people, she'll ask if I'd be willing to work with X who's going through Y. And of course, I'll say yes. So what I found is it starts with Abby. It's unbelievable to me the number of times the people I have worked with said, Abby drove me to Eugene, Abby did this, Abby did that. It's amazing to me, as if you didn't have other things you're doing in your life. It's quite remarkable, and I think she's too modest about it. So starting with Abby, I think a key is them feeling there's somebody who feels that they have value and that somebody's willing to give my time, whoever else's time, to them to see how we can help them head more in the direction that they want to get for themselves. First person I worked with was living in a group home, and I didn't have any Adele's yet. So I would say low self-esteem has been kind of a theme with the people that I've worked with. And this woman was cooking the meals for the other women in the house and paying for the food. And after the session, she did move out, which I thought was a remarkable success. Had somebody else, this was a little not what I expected. A woman told Abby she keeps dropping things and they're breaking. Can I help? Well, I've never done that. But instead of looking at the dropping, I do a lot of inner child work. And we identified some things. I don't know if she's improved on that.
She has, yes, she has improved. So yes.
And then another woman, the one I did the most number of sessions with, abusive husband who put her down, got into a very bad physically a situation where she was physically traumatized, abused, and she really was great to watch her rebuild herself and to gain more sense of self and that she's not doomed. And again, so many times that she talked about Abby going so far out of her way. But it's been interesting. I didn't have any time in prison, and I'm still trying to figure out phones. So, but it's been good. And when Abby calls, are you willing to do somebody else? And it has not been overbearing by any means. And the answer is yes. So
thank you, Jean. Let's give it for Jean. Just absolute community hero. Thank you. Yeah, and that is what we want to do is wonderful people. No matter what your skill is or how you want to plug in. If you have something, if you want to teach time management, if you, I'm always I'm still looking for my massage therapist. And then, let's say you do that. If you only want to donate one session, great. To once a month, donate a session, whatever. So it can be a one-on-one kind of thing, like what Jean's doing, or it could be a group thing where it's a class that you're teaching. We've got somebody now who's going to teach journaling. I've got somebody else who does like a shame thing that they're going to help people. She doesn't really explain how it works to me yet. We have a lot of different people doing a lot of different things. So we will build a database of all the wonderful people in the community who are kind and want to help. And then when the time is right, we will call you and say, now about doing this. So I don't want anybody to feel like they would be trapped, like what Jean was saying. We're respectful of you as a volunteer. We also we're going to have everybody who volunteers take the ACEs classes so that you at least have that baseline education on being trauma informed, because it is interesting. I mean, I'm sure I know Jean had a couple sessions that he scheduled and they just didn't show up for. It can be frustrating, and when you get frustrated. Can you wait till the end?
I'm just saying, I've taken it.
You what?
I've taken the ACEs class.
Oh, okay, great. Wonderful. It's free. It's offered here by the Southern Oregon School District. Peter Buckley, our former representative, teaches it. It's a fantastic class, and it's free. So anyway, Jean is a great example of a community member who's collaborating, and then Winter Spring is another one. A lot of people who have a loved one who dies while they're in prison, the rules in prison are different, so you can't really express yourself. It's a very difficult time. It's a very difficult place to lose a loved one. So we had Winter Spring, it's a nonprofit who works around grief. They did a Zoom class for us, and we had people, who had lost someone while they're incarcerated, attend that, and it just gave them a way to talk about it and give them some tools to, some symbolic things that they could do to help feel closure, and just kind of acknowledge that there's no right way to grieve. And so these are the kinds of things that this is the beginning, and it's just hopefully going to get bigger from there. The third and most general, this outer circle of engagement, and really I want the whole community to do this, is just be part of the Golden Rule Network. And the Golden Rule Network is simply anyone in the community who thinks this is a good idea, wants to be a loving presence in the lives of our people, but either don't have the time or aren't quite don't know how to engage. And it's basically going to be a Facebook page, an email blast, a text that we'll send out that, hey, so-and-so just moved and needs a sofa. Does anyone have a sofa? Or, hey, we're looking for a place to have a meeting. Is there anyone who could offer us a room for a day or something like that? Whatever it is, we're just going to kind of put it out to the community and see what the community can give back. So it's a nice way of engaging people without them feeling overcommitted or over-leaned on. So right now, most of the time that we spend is one-on-one with people, and that would be me, working one-on-one with people, taking them to appointments. This morning I went to court with somebody. I've helped people move. I do a lot of driving around and buying people coffee. One thing I do when I first meet someone for the very first time, I often pick them up. We buy a coffee, and I drive them. You know how it's real pretty out in like Phoenix if you take those back roads. I do that because a lot of people that we work with don't have cars, and so they're living in Medford, kind of in the riverside, kind of in the ugly part of Medford. So I think it's really important to expose, I just take a deep breath when it's just beautiful outside, and we're talking, but we're not looking at each other because we're looking that way, and that works really well to build trust. So after about 20 minutes of driving around, I feel I have a pretty good connection with people, and that works really, really well. Some of the things we offer is this rest and revive meditation. It was supposed to be just 20 minutes. We're getting a little bit of the creep. It's getting a little longer. But it is a very deep, it's yoga nidra. We don't call it yoga nidra, but it's a very deep, restful meditation. And then on Wednesdays, we have a Zoom that's loved ones of the incarcerated. Because for people don't think about it, but when you have somebody in prison, it's really hard on the family too. It's very, very painful. And so it's a place for people to come who have a loved one who is incarcerated to talk about it, because a lot of times they themselves carry some shame around that and don't talk about it with their friends or family or people at work. So that's a safe place for people to come and talk about it, and to get, we help them with resources. We also help people with reentry plans so that people are prepared for what their loved one might have been gone through and what the right things to do might be. I mean, it's never one size fits all, but I would say a surprise party on the first day back would be a bad idea. And I know people that have actually done that. It's just like, wow, it's a little much. So anyway, those are two of the things that we offer. So I brought these up. These are some of the things we're doing. I'm going to show you guys the life skills class, and this is something we're also reaching out to the community for community coaches for our life skills class, and the entrepreneurial thing I mentioned. The Wild Rogue Expressions is an immersive art and ecology program we're developing, where we take people out into nature, do a little nature walk, and then we have the Arts and Ecology Institute. They're going to teach art. So we're going to do one quick one up to Mount Ashland. We're going to do one in the Redwoods where we spend the night in a cabin, do an Airbnb or something. And then I also want to do one where we go to the coast. I just have this vision of everybody sitting on a porch with long paintbrushes painting the ocean. So the idea being that for many people, I mean, some of the people that I work with, they did over 20 years in prison. And so this is an opportunity for us to expose people to things that maybe they haven't had an opportunity to experience. I met someone who'd never been to the coast before, who lives in Oregon. So she just went to the coast for the first time. So these are the kind of things that we would like to do. And then, of course, the coherence and heart math. There's going to be a whole lot more, and a lot of what we offer will probably depend on what people offer to us that they can expose people to. So let's see. So this is an example of the life skills curriculum, the orientation, institutionalization. We had a guest speaker at our training, and it was very interesting because, we all know that if you've been in prison, and Adele, maybe you can speak to this too, but you don't choose your food, you don't choose your clothes, you don't choose when you get up, you don't choose when you go to bed, you don't get any freedom. So we kind of know that, but the things I hadn't considered is just the culture. And I do think the women's prison is maybe slightly different than the men's, but I know that in the men's you don't show emotion, you don't show emotion, you don't connect, you don't do all the things that you kind of need to do out here to get along better. So we talk about that. We're going to talk about that. We'll do assessments to see where people are at in their lives. We're going to hand out resources to people and then pair them up with a community coach, a volunteer. So as they go through these classes, they've got one of you guys with them, kind of learning and reflecting back with them. Now, we're going to do it so that anyone taking the life skills can skip two classes, because someone may not need one of these things, and so we don't want to insult anybody's intelligence or force them to sit through something they don't particularly need, like maybe somebody already knows how to use their cell phone and Wi-Fi. But we're doing 2 classes in each one of these areas, self-regulation. We're giving each person a gift for taking those 2 classes. Self-coaching and time management. Time management's really, again, because there's not so much time management going on in prison, that's something that I've noticed some people need help with. This, of course, is an obvious thing. Financing, we're going to work with the Consumer Credit Counseling Center here, and they're going to help people figure out budgets. And then with WorkSource, which is basically the employment department, we're going to do a field trip to the employment department and have them get into their system. And we're going to give them their gift. There's a document carrier. The next level is what I'm excited about. Next level is we're going to sit down with each person and just say, what's your goal? What do you want to do? It doesn't have to be all the standard things. It doesn't have to be a job, a house, or a car, but it can be. But it might be, I just want to volunteer, or it might be, I just want to reconnect with my family. It could be a million different things. So whatever it is, we want the person who's taking this class with their community coach to actually make a plan, make a roadmap, and be accountable to the person that they're working with. And so we'll help you make that roadmap. And we're going to meet 6 months after the classes are over just to see how people are doing. And then your person that you're matched with will be involved with you, helping you reach this goal. Our graduation will be to do a group circle and for everyone to talk about what they got out of the class, but to also share their goals with the group, because again, we all know if we share our goals, we hold ourselves a little bit more accountable to them. And of course, surveys. We're going to give everybody a $100 gift card at the end as well. So obviously I need a little money to do this, so I've written a grant. I don't know if I've gotten it yet, but we're hoping to do this. And another way for the community to get involved is through our career program that I mentioned. So for those that just want to get a job, we're going to do the assessment test. If people don't have a car, we'll drive them to, if you're paired up with someone, we'll take you to work. We'll take you to that job interview, because stress is what makes you shut down intellectually. When you're stressed, your thinker doesn't work. And so we want to help create as much success for our folks as we can. So I think taking people to their interview is really helpful, so they know they've got a buddy there. But also getting to that first day of work. I took one guy, he was going to take the bus, and I was like, why don't we just, oh my God, it was out in White City. There is no way he would have gotten there, because the bus was like 3 miles away in like an industrial area. And I was so glad that I took him, because we spent like half an hour just trying to find where the bus stop was. He didn't keep that job after a while, because it was just too hard to get to. But I took him for the first week there. And then for people that want to start their own business, we have asked for money to help them get, to do it properly. The Small Business Administration or Development Center is going to work with us. They have an entrepreneurial class, so we'll pay for that for the participants. And they will help them produce a one-page business plan. And then again, we'll have somebody in the community who's more like entrepreneurial, who business is kind of their thing. We'll partner them up, and they can help them with that business plan. And really, it's not just the roadmap. Again, it's not just here's the map, go do it. It's like, okay, so you need a website. Okay, do you know how to do that? Let's go to GoDaddy together. It's really helping people get there. And then we'll help up to $500 pay for the startup costs. So that's another thing that we're doing. And so these are ways that people can get involved. And I just kind of want to close with a couple things. Father Boyle, who is the founder of Homeboy Industries, this quote we stand with those whose dignity has been denied, and we stand with the easily despised and the readily left out. We stand with the demonizing so that the demonizing will stop. And we stand with the disposable so the day will come when we stop throwing people away. And I feel like that is really the spirit of kindness that really will help us as a society move forward. He always says if people are on the margins, then we all need to just take a step back and stand with them, and then nobody's outside the edge, That's kind of in my mind and in my heart, that's kind of how I approach this. It's just, there's nobody who's too horrible that I wouldn't work with. There's nobody who's, we're not defined by the things that we've done. If you can see the humanity in someone and nurture that, that's what some of these folks need more than anything. So this is the invitation. There's just many, many ways to volunteer. I'm going to pass these out. Actually, do you mind? Thank you. In these envelopes, there is an envelope with some information about Golden Rule. There's a golden ticket and a pen. And if anybody feels motivated or would like to do it, these are all the different ways. These are all the different ways that you can get involved. There's probably ways I haven't even thought of. And there's definitely no pressure. If you're not necessarily wanting to get involved, that's absolutely fine too. If you can just keep us in your heart and your mind and maybe tell other people about us, because our whole model is to get out there, and we're going to do a lot of public presentations and things like that. Recycling is, if you do recycle and you want to donate your recycling, we'll come pick it up. If you have an account at the Bottle Drop Center, you can actually donate your money directly that way. The mini book club I'm excited about. The mini book club is, how we've all read a book that changes your life and you just want other people to read it? So we're going to have a list of books that anybody who has a book that they would love other people to read. If one of our participants reads your book, Golden Rule will pay for you to go have coffee with them to talk about the book. I haven't figured out exactly how to do it, but I want to do walk and talks where we kind of go for walks. Walking is a great way to self-regulate. It's also a great way to get out in nature. So one of the things we want to do is meet in Lithia Park and just kind of pair people up and just kind of walk. Kind of like the same thing with driving. When you're walking, you're not like right looking at each other, and it's an easier way to just relax. It's just a way to relax. And these are other things. The private sector service provider is a fancy way of saying, you know, if there's something that you do that you want to share with us. If you're a healer, an energy worker, a massage therapist, if you do something you think that our people could benefit from, we'd love to talk to you and see if there's anything you'd like to offer us. And so that is, I think, that is it. These are some of the folks that we work with. These folks are all so precious to me. I just love them all so much. Such great stories. Kimberly here, she's a painter. She gave me that painting. So those are some of the perks. And that's our website, Golden Rule ReEntry. So that is it. I really appreciate you guys coming out. Thank you. And Adele, if you have questions for Adele or myself, we're here.
I'd like to say bravo.
Thank you.
I didn't know why I came tonight,
Oh.
but now I know.
Oh.
And just beautiful.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you. What's your name?
Ronnie.
Ronnie? Ronnie. Thanks, Ronnie. Cool. You, sir.
Yeah. Abigail, how many participants have you helped since you started Golden Rule ReEntry?
Oh, how many people have I helped since it started? Probably I'm working with about 30 people personally. You know, some people are every day, and some people just touch in just to get a driver's license thing fixed or something like that. But I would say I have about 12 people that I work with a lot, and everybody else varies, but about 30 people. And just think how much more, that's just me. Think how much more we can do when we get the whole community involved and we just love up everybody. So, yeah.
How do you get the referrals for the people to contact you, or do you find them, or how does that work?
Well, I think, how do we get our referrals? How do people find us? It's a great question. I lucked out. Right when I started, I got invited to join the Federal ReEntry Court team. So I am very plugged into the federal system, which is great because unlike state prison, the federal system only releases like six or so people a month into Jackson County. And so we have a once a month meeting where the people in reentry court come. And so we hear them talk about their issues and we all team up together to help them. But the parole officers also will just text me. All I get's a name and a number. I have a referral form, but they haven't used it yet. And I just reach out and then other people find us through the website, and sometimes it's word of mouth. So we work with federal prisons and the state prison, not as much, but if someone from state prison calls me, I'm thrilled. We don't work with the jail as much because that's more of a revolving door and it's not quite the same thing. Our goal is mainly to work with people who've been out of society for a while and need help getting in. We're not, a drug and alcohol counseling and mental health provider, so we don't do that as much. But does that answer your question? Yeah. And then Steve?
How many men and women are you think are walking around between here and Bedford who could use this?
A lot. I mean, Aura's got a hotel full of people that the Super 8. I mean, I couldn't give you a number, but I would say hundreds, probably.
They're all mostly ex-cons?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of people. I know a lot of people. I mean, well, like Adele's one of those people. Like you wouldn't know. You don't. Adele's not your typical person who's been to prison. She's more just like, someone who just ended up there, kind of thing. So there's a lot of people who've done time that you don't even know about, and they may or may not need as much help. And then there's other people who I end up helping partners. I end up like working with. Like I'll be working with a man who's been to prison and somehow I end up like doing more with the girlfriend or the kids or whoever because I see everybody as connected, and so we'll help the family members as well if we think it makes sense, because it doesn't work if everybody's not doing well. So
how are you going to communicate this program to the general community on a larger scale?
So how are we going to get this out to the community in a larger scale? Well, tonight's lecture was recorded. It was live streamed and hopefully recorded. So we will be using the internet. This idea it's a very basic idea. So we do want to grow, and we want to have Golden Rule Medford, Golden Rule Eugene, Golden Rule Salem. So we would love to be up and down the I-5 corridor in Oregon, and ultimately anybody who wants to replicate this, we'd be happy to help people anywhere in the country do this. So I guess people will find us.
Can you go on radio stations and talk about it?
Yes, we do go on radio stations. In fact, last week I did a KSKQ interview with Renee with her show Life Matters. And I think a big part of Golden Rule will be these types of presentations, going out in front of people and just kind of sharing this information, helping them meet the folks that we work with, and just because it is about the Golden Rule, it's about shifting people's perception. We want to shift the lens of how people look at people who've done time. I mean, it's amazing how, you know, we've all done things. We've all done things, and to treat one set of people like they're, and yet, you know, it just, we're all human beings. And so, I forgot the question. Sorry. Anything else? Yeah.
I do elder care, and I know there's a lot of seniors who would love to do volunteer work.
Mm.
And maybe you should bring this presentation to the senior center.
Elder care, yes. We'd love to come to the senior center. So maybe if you'd like to talk to me, if you...
Well, I'm not connected with elder. I'm just saying you'd have to contact the senior center.
Oh, okay.
I just personally do elder. I'm a caregiver.
Oh, I understand what you're saying.
work
Yeah.
with a lot and I know there's a lot of seniors, I mean, I'm a senior myself, but, you know, who really want to have, you know, they're retired and they want to volunteer and give back to the community. They just don't know how to
Yeah.
connect. So maybe
So
senior center would be a good place for you to bring this presentation to.
people who have extra time would be great for volunteers. And actually that's something I didn't really mention, but it's really the range, because our training is so intensive that it's a great resume builder too. So even whether you're someone who has retired and you have a lot of time, or if you're a young person who wants to go into social work and you want to try it out, that's also, I've talked to SOU, to the students there, because it's a great way to kind of try out social work without becoming a social worker, to see if you like it. And if you do like it and you want to go on with it, it's a great resume builder. I mean, my gosh, you've got like, and you're going to have like active listening training, ACEs training, you know, hands-on work with people. Yeah. So.
What is the minimum age for people to become volunteer? 18? Or?
The minimum age to become a volunteer, I think, would have to be 18. Although if there was someone who was younger who wanted to, I would talk with them. I just wouldn't pair them up with anybody. Just for, I mean, not for safety reasons, but I mean, yes, for safety reasons, but I would do that in any situation. Just when you have a minor, they just have to be treated differently. We work with adults more than we do with children in our programming, just because there are so many programs for children. And children are the obvious place to put the energy as a society. But at the same time, we want to break these cycles, and there's so many adults who fall through the cracks, especially adult men who fall through the cracks, that for me, I just have a special place in my heart for the folks that maybe aren't getting the love or the attention. So, yeah, that's a good question though. So yeah, if there was a minor who wanted to work with us, I would still meet with them, sit down, talk with them about their interests, and maybe have them help in other ways. You know, they could become our social media expert. Because we all know the younger you are, the better you are at that stuff. Yeah. So, well, anything else before we close? I did mean to open this meeting with great thanks and to acknowledge the native tribes whose land we're on, the unceded land. They didn't necessarily give it to us, but the Shasta tribe, Tacoma, Cow Creek Indian, Latgawa tribes. I just think it's important also to acknowledge that this land was theirs first, and that we're on it now. So I wanted to do that as well. And I suppose with that, we'll call it good. Thank you for coming.